All right, welcome to Social Anxiety Solutions, your journey to social confidence. My name is Sebastian van der Schrier, and I'm an ex-social anxiety disorder sufferer. And thanks to energy psychology and the help of some brilliant therapists, I've been able to become free of anxiety and I'm comfortable and at ease in social situations. Now, on this show, I interview various experts from both Western traditional psychology as well as Eastern energy psychology. And I do that in order to share the best social anxiety solutions with you. Now today I'm very excited because I'm interviewing Dr. Bruce Lipton on whether social anxiety is something you have due to poor genes or maybe due to something else. So here's a bit about Bruce, and I'm going to read this to you because it's quite a bit. Bruce Lipton is a PhD, and he's a former medical school professor and research scientist who made a revolutionary discovery during his research studies in the late 1980s, which is around when I was born, when he was doing research at Stanford University School of Medicine. His studies revealed that the environment operating through the cell membrane controlled the behavior and physiology of the cell, turning genes on and off. These discoveries, which ran counter to the established scientific view that life is controlled by the genes, presaged one of today's most important fields of study, the science of epigenetics. The implications of his findings radically changed our understanding of life. It showed that genes and DNA do not control our biology, that instead DNA is controlled by signals from outside the cell, including the energetic messages emanating from our positive and negative thoughts. Now, if this sounds a bit complicated to you, to put it more bluntly, we are not victims of our genes. Bruce's research helped us to understand that we're in control of our life and that we can take control, we are in control of our life by taking control of our inner wiring. Bruce is the best-selling author of The Biology of Belief. He's been a guest speaker on hundreds of TV and radio shows, and he's kind of a superstar in this whole field. So I'm very honored to have him on the show. Thanks for being here, Bruce.
Sebastian, thank you for this opportunity. And, I really so appreciate this chance to communicate with the community that you work with for a very important reason. Because most of us have been programmed with the belief that genes control our life. And as far as we know, we didn't pick the genes we came with. And if we don't like the characteristics, you can't change the genes. And then you start to realize, well, if genes are turning on and off and you had nothing to do with it, then your life is not under your control. It's under the control of these genes. And you become what we call a victim of heredity. Oh, it's running in my family. My father was this way and my grandfather was this way. And we buy into that belief. Well, the problem with the moment you say you're a victim is the moment you say, I have no power. Victim means no power.
Right.
And so medicine from the 1950s on until very recently has really push the belief that genes turn on and off and in the process control our lives. And then we're the victims and the medical community is the hero that comes in and helps us with our genes and all that kind of stuff and drugs and medications and all that. Well, there's the new science that you mentioned in the introduction, and it's called epigenetics. And you talk about the conventional belief, genetic control. This character is under genetic control, okay? Social anxiety is an expression of genetic control. That's the old storyline. And that belief all of a sudden says, well, geez, to get rid of my social anxiety, I got to change my genes. And I go, well, that's the old belief, because the new science, which has replaced that, is called epigenetics. And you go, well, genetics, epigenetics, it sounds the same. I go, no, it is a revolution. And I'll tell you why. When I say genetic control, the old belief simply means control by genes. But when I say epigenetic control, the new science, epi means above. So when I say epigenetic control, it reads as control above the genes. What do you mean? I say the entire belief that genes turn on and off and regulate themselves is completely false. Completely a mistake And now the new science is this revolution that says, no, genes are turned on and off by what's going on in the environment. And more importantly, what our perception of the environment is. So if we change our perception, we can change our genes. And this is all of a sudden it says, well, wait a minute. Genetic control, old story, victim. Epigenetic control, new story, mastery. I am the master of my genes. The genes don't turn on and off by themselves. They're controlled by my response to the environment, my perception of the environment. I change my environment, I change my perception, and I change my genetics. Now, some people think, well, that's kind of new agey stuff. I go, well, listen. This revolution is so important, but it explains things that we've known for years, but we're never able to understand. I'll give a simple example. The placebo effect. What's the placebo effect? Well, a person's sick with some disease, and the doctor says, oh, look, here's the greatest new medicine that's going to heal you. And the person takes the medicine and they get better, but then find out that the medicine was just a sugar pill. And you say, well, what healed you? Well, obviously not the sugar pill. It was your belief in the sugar pill. Your perception that now that I take this pill, I'm going to get healed. That's what caused the healing, changing the perception or the belief of the individual. And this becomes profoundly important because it explains how thought changes our health. And it's very interesting because most people heard of placebo. Oh, yeah. The sugar pill, the fake surgery, whatever it is, we think it turns out it wasn't that caused it. It was only our belief in the pill, our belief in the surgery that caused that. And that's called placebo. And that's about positive thinking. If that's basically what it is. I have a negative illness and I need positive thinking, and placebo comes in. What I think is very important that people need to know is, well, placebo is a result of positive thinking. In other words, a positive thought can heal you. I go, yes. But the question becomes more important now, Sebastian, and that is, what about a negative thought? I mean, we're talking positive thoughts, placebo, but what about negative thought? And here's the most important fact. A negative thought is equally powerful in controlling your biology, but it works in the opposite direction of a positive thought. A positive thought can heal me. Now listen to this fact. A negative thought can cause any disease in the world. It can kill you just because you believe, oh my God, I'm going to die. If you truly believe it, you'll die. And what's the point? We are not victims of our heredity. We're not victims of genes, because it's our consciousness that controls these genes. And if we change our consciousness, such as in the placebo effect, or in the negative one, remember the negative one causes illness and death, that's called nocebo. Placebo, positive thinking heals. Nocebo, negative thinking causes the disease. And all of a sudden it's like, well, the power wasn't in the genes, the power was in the thinking. And then you go, well, wait a minute. It's running in my family. Don't genes run in families? It's passed down from generation to generation. I go, well, yes, they do. But here's another thing that people haven't noticed until more recent times. Behavior is passed down as if it was genes. I'll give you a very important example. If a child gets adopted into a family that has cancer running in the family, the whole history of the family, and the child's adopted into that family, guess what? That child will get the same family cancer like any of the natural siblings, but you have to remember this. That adopted child has completely different genetics. What's the point? The cancer that the child gets wasn't related to the genetics. It was related to the behavior that was running in the family. And I say this becomes important because you can't change your genes. Sure, you can change your behavior. Your behavior, you can change the function of your genes. So the first thing we have to recognize is that genes provide physical building blocks to make a body. I go, why is it relevant? And the answer is this. Making the parts doesn't determine how the parts are going to be used. It just makes a human body. How the body is going to be used is related to how that individual, that body, responds to the world around them. You change your response, and you can change your behavior, and you can change your genetics, okay? So the most important thing is this. If people believe that their behavior is interfered with by their genes, this is a big error. As a matter of fact, here's a number, a statistic, that, like, put this right up front, and it goes like this. Less than 1% of all disease and dysfunction, less than 1% are due to genes. I said, well, where's all the dysfunction and disease coming from? And it goes, environment and perception. Okay? So at this point, if we're having issues with social anxiety, which is a behavior consequence, I can't blame it on a gene. A gene makes a body part. It doesn't say how the part's going to be used, just makes a part. Two cars come out of an assembly line exactly the same. Parts are all exactly the same. One car goes to a kid. The other car goes to a mature person. I say, now what? Let him drive the car. Guess what? The kid's car is not going to do as well as the car that went to the older person. I say, why not? It wasn't the car that breaks down. It was breaking down because of the driver, not because of the vehicle. So when you're talking about social anxiety and you want to attribute that to a mechanical dysfunction, no, that's not going to fly. That doesn't work that way. It's related to behavior. Now, does that make sense so far? So before I go on any deeper, Sebastian, any want to clarify it? Or...
Good, thank you. Yes, it makes sense. What I like the analogy that you brought up, where if cancer, if a kid is adopted in a family that has a line of cancer, that adopted child will get cancer, and it's not to be attributed to faulty genes because it's not from that family.
Right.
Relating that to social anxiety, when people say, well, my dad had it, my uncle had it, it runs with us in the family, it's like, yeah, sure. But what I hear you say, and it's also my experience coaching people with social anxiety, it's they absorb it by seeing the behavior of the people, their caregivers, their mom and dad. They're modeling it after them, and they're just downloading the information, and it becomes, they have these beliefs through which they now perceive the world.
Right. And these are behavioral programs. So let me give an analogy, and then we can work from the analogy. I go to the Apple store, and I buy a brand new iPod, the music player. And on the front of the iPod is what they call a touch screen. So you can select a playlist and, change the volume and adjust the EQ, and you can control it. It's creative. So here's the joke. I go to the Apple store, I buy a brand new iPod, and I come out of the store, I open the box, and I take out the iPod, and I touch the screen, and I say, play. Nothing happens. And that's like, oh my God, just spent all this money on an iPod, doesn't even work. Some little 7-year-old kid comes up and says, mister, you didn't download any music, so you can't play any music. So it's like, oh, before I'm able to create a playlist, first I have to download the program. Okay? Now here's the truth about the nature of our consciousness. When we are first born, our brain is not working in consciousness. For 7 years, it's not even employing consciousness as an activity. When you put wires on a person's head and you read the brain activity, it's called electroencephalograph, EEG. Here's the point, that when you put wires on a child's head, the brain activity, EEG, the vibration called consciousness, doesn't really kick in until age 7. I say, well, why? And here's the point. So I give you a joke story. I say, a baby is just being born, and let's pretend the baby could speak. and it's just being born. It comes out of the birth canal, and we say, "Hi, welcome, baby. Tell us something." And the baby will look at you and go, "I don't know anything. I just got here. I have no knowledge. I have nothing." So I say, you can't make a playlist until you have the downloaded music. You cannot be conscious until you have downloaded programs to be conscious of. What's the point? The first 7 years of a child's life, actually from the last trimester of pregnancy to the first 7, the predominant brain activity is below consciousness. It's called theta. I say, so the brain is not even ramped up to be conscious yet. It's below. I say theta. I said, yeah. The character of theta is imagination. And they mix it with the real world. The boy is riding a broom and as a horse. And the mother says, "Give me the broom." And the boy is like, "I don't even know what you're talking about," because to the boy at that moment, it's not a broom. It's a horse. It's a live horse. It's imagination, mixing imagination and real world. Or a tea party where there's no tea and they pour empty things and they pretend they're drinking the tea and they got a mud piece of pie and they pretend they're pie and tea. And I go, it's imagination, but it becomes part of the real world. I say, that's the character of theta. Now here's the other character of theta. It's hypnosis. When a child is in theta, their brain is recording everything they see, especially from the mother and the father, because those are the primary teachers. So the baby, the infant, is programmed to watch the mother and father and observe their behavior. And so the child's brain is like a video recorder. It's recording how parents behave. And if parents have a negative behavior, what do you think the child just downloaded? Negative behavior. So the subconscious mind has programs that were recorded by observing your parents, your siblings, and your community. You say, why would nature do that? And here's the answer. Very simple. How many rules do you have to know to become a functional member of a family or a functional member of a community? How many rules? Thousands. Thousands. I say, okay, well, teach an infant. How are you going to teach an infant thousands of rules? I say, okay, an infant can't read. It can't make any sense out of it. I say, nature takes care of it. Nature just said, look, I just record. Whatever I just saw, I just recorded. So if I have a parent with a negative behavior, an anger issue, an issue that could precipitate cancer even, if I have a parent whose behavior is causing a problem, and I'm a kid in that family, the first thing I did is record that behavior. And it's in my subconscious mind. And I go, okay, well, I have two minds. I have conscious mind, which is connected to my identity. It's unique to me. My conscious mind is different than your conscious mind. But what is interesting is the subconscious mind is just a database of recorded programs. It's just recorded from other people. It's not even yours. So I go, okay, wait. So after age 7, I become conscious. I go, yeah. I go, so your conscious mind can run your life. You can be creative. That's conscious mind is creative. Mind is habit. Whatever you learn how to walk, it's in your subconscious mind. You learn how to drive a car, it's in your subconscious mind. You can drive a car without thinking about it. Why? It's automatic behavior. So subconscious is programs, automatic behavior, no thinking. You learned how to ride a bike. You learned how to walk. When did you learn how to walk? Before you were 2. But you don't need to think about walking. Ever since you were 2, you could just walk automatically. It's a habit. Okay? Now, the issue about that is if I have parents with an issue, psychological, social issue, and I copy their behavior, that's in my subconscious. It's automatic. It's automatic. And you say, well, what about my conscious mind that's creative? And I go, yeah, that's the cool part. That's the one that has wishes and desires. I don't want to have a social problem. I want to be healthy. I want to be strong. I want to be able to be sociable and everything. I go, that's conscious mind, creative. You say, well, how come if my conscious mind wants to be creative, I'm not? How come my conscious mind wants to be socially, capable of handling everything, and it's not? And I go, here's the secret. When we are thinking, Sebastian, when you're having a thought, the answer or solution to your thought is not on the outside, but it's on the inside. If I say to you, hey, Sebastian, tell me what you're doing on Saturday, and then you say, oh, what am I thinking? What am I doing? You're thinking. I go, well, here's the problem. When conscious mind is thinking, by definition, it's going inside to think, so it's not paying attention. So if you're walking down the street and you have a thought, guess what? At the moment you have a thought, conscious mind's not looking at the sidewalk, not looking at anything. This conscious mind went inside. I say, but does that mean you stop walking? I go, no. Here's the clue. Subconscious mind is like autopilot. Conscious mind is the pilot. When the conscious mind is thinking, the pilot lets go of the wheel. Conscious mind's inside thinking. So whatever I was doing, walking, talking, driving the car, riding the bicycle, whatever, that's a program. I can do that without thinking. So here's the point, and this is, so we're getting down to the critical part here, Sebastian, and it's this. 95% of the day, our conscious mind is thinking. I go, yeah, but what does that mean? That 95% of the day, you're not running your life with your conscious mind. Your programs in your subconscious are running your life automatically, the autopilot. I go, why is it relevant? Well, the subconscious programs didn't come from you. Your subconscious programs came from observing other people. So 95% of the day, we let go of the wheel as we're thinking, and subconscious programs kick in. But that's what my father taught me, or what I learned from my father, or what I learned from my mother. And I said, but that's not my behavior, but it's automatic. It's an automatic pilot. So we think that we're running our life with, I want to be social and I want to have a great, happy relationship with people. And I go, that's really great. That's conscious mind. But it's only working 5% of the time for the average person. I say, that means 95% of the average person's life is not coming from their wishes and desires. 95% of their life is coming from the programs that other people put in. You're not even living your own life. You're living your parents' life. That's why kids follow in their parents' footsteps. It's not a genetic thing. Oh, a musician has a kid who becomes a musician, and they say, oh, they got the music gene. It had nothing to do with music gene. It's just that the kid grew up in the presence of music, and that became the download. So when they're not paying attention, they could play the music without even thinking about it. So now we step back and we look at the community. And I go, we have social issues. I go, geez, am I causing these social issues? And I go, yes and no. Yes, you are causing them, but not with your conscious mind. You're causing them because 95% of the time you're playing the programs from the subconscious mind. Now, and I'll add one more thing, and then we'll take a break and ask questions. But it goes like this. It's a story I have given in lectures 30 years. Same story, and I'm going to give it again right now. And that is this. Sometime in your development, you probably had a friend, and you were very close to your friend, so you knew your friend's behavior very well. And you happen to know your friend's parent. And one day you see your friend has some of the same behavior as the parent. So you're going to tell your friend, you go, hey, Bill, you're just like your dad. And then you back away. Bill goes crazy. How can you compare me to my dad? I'm nothing like my dad. And everyone laughs because they're familiar with it. And I go, that is the single most profound story I can tell you for this reason. Everyone else can see that Bill's behavior is like his dad's. The only one who doesn't see it is Bill, because he's the one that says, how can you compare me? I'm not like my dad. I go, I can explain it to you now, and then you'll understand it. And it goes like this. Is thinking. And when he's thinking, he's not paying attention to what's going on the outside because his thinking is on the inside. But when he's thinking, he automatically plays the programs that he downloaded from his father. So 95% of the time, his behavior is coming from the same program that his father had. But he can't see it. Everybody else can see it, but he can't see it. So all of a sudden, it's like, I think I'm running my life. I go, no, you're not. 95% of your life is coming from that program that you got from your family. And then comes the issue, and that is this. How do I know what the programs are? Because the programming started even before I was born, last trimester of pregnancy, for first 7 years. So I say, well, what program did you get when you were 1? So, I have no idea. How about 0? God, I have less of an idea. You were being programmed. And I say, yeah, but how do you know what the programs are? You were not conscious. It didn't start until age 7. You were just receiving, download. So now I want to help people because the issue is simple. It's simple. It goes like this. 95% of your life is coming from subconscious programs, which you got from other people. So you want to know what the programs are? Your life is a printout of those programs. Look at your life. The things you like that come into your life because you have programs to let them come into your life. But the things you don't like, the struggles that you have, the things you have to work hard to make happen, the wishes that you can't seem to get to, and you put a lot of effort in, I'm working real hard to make this happen. Why are you working so hard? And the answer is this. Because it generally means that whatever you want, that program is not in the subconscious, and you're trying to work over a program in the subconscious that's not good. And so you want to be successful, you work hard, you're not successful. It's not because you can't be successful. It's because 95% of your life is coming from some program from a parent that says not good enough, not smart enough, whatever it is. And you're now playing it out 95% of the time, and you're the one that can't see it. I say, why is it relevant? If I cannot see that I'm causing the problem, then by definition, I think I'm the victim. I didn't do that. Somebody else did that. Oh, my parents, genetics did that. And no, it's not me, it's genes. I go, no, it's the program. So basically, once you understand you have this issue, it really is now saying, how do I change that program? Because I hate this program and it's not helping me. And then there's ways that another pause here.
Yeah, good. Bruce, what you're saying, and I'm very attentively listening. Also, because I'm also a bit concerned about the internet that drops a bit every now and then, but I think it's just coming across enough. I'm not sure what your experience is, but on this side.
It's good for me on this side, so I can't see the other side.
Okay, good. All right. The programs that you're talking about, like someone who now has social anxiety, and they're like, well, I don't want to have social anxiety. I want to have social ease. I want to enjoy myself. I want to be comfortable. But it's the programs that they're having that come from the repetitive negative experiences, the things that they've observed in their early childhood that then formed the beliefs and the programs as a result of these beliefs that they're now having. And
yes.
They want to get over it, but just I just have to force myself to face my fears, and then maybe I'll learn that I'm actually okay when I do that. But you're swimming upstream, and since yes, you can consciously take control to a degree, but only 5% of the time, and the other once you turn your back or once you're not paying attention, then the programs are running the show again, right? And the question is, or kind of where we ended was, well, how is it then that we're attacking these programs, or rather, how do we shift and change these programs that we're currently dealing with that are causing the problem of anxiety? And I know that you're an advocate of energy psychology, and I'm I'm wondering what your personal experience with that was and how you got into that.
Okay. Well, first of all, I had to understand, you see, once I started getting into the genetics and then the behavior and then the programming, I would love to go out and lectures and say, look, your issues aren't your genes, your issues are your programs. So that gives you an opportunity to free yourself, because it's easier to rewrite a program than it is to change your genes. However, at the end of those lectures, I would just say, yes, and in conclusion, your life is coming 95% from the program. And the first question at the end of every lecture was, well, how do I change the program? And I would go, my job was recognizing how the program came from and all that. And I saw this, the answer, and it was energy psychology, was I was giving a lecture in Colorado in the Rocky Mountains. And I gave the lecture and concluded, just as I just said, it's the subconscious that's in the way, and it's not your genes, and thank you very much. And then the first question is, how do you change it? And I go, that's not my job. I don't know how to change it. Mm-hmm. And the fun part was, as soon as I upset as usual, because I thought the lecture was really great, but the moment I finished the lecture, they didn't care about what I just said. They just wanted to go, now how do I change it? And I was feeling like, God, I thought the science was really great, but it doesn't save anybody. And I was put my computer in my bag, and I was going back to the back of the room, and the next speaker was coming up. His name was Rob Williams. And I could hear, as I was walking back to my seat, he says, I'm going to show you how to change those beliefs Bruce talked about. And I go, okay, sure. And then it was kind of funny, because he asked the audience, big audience, he said, how many people would like to change a belief? And almost everybody, the hand goes up, you know. And it was funny, because I saw the same person that he saw, and it was a woman who, like, she wasn't sure. She put her hand up and like that, and we both saw her. So the fun part was, I saw her, and then he sees her, and he says, okay, you tell us your name and what your problem is. And everybody looked at her, and she just turned beet red. She just turned red. Not a word. She couldn't say her name. She couldn't talk. And so he left from the front of the room, got in the middle of the audience, and got next to her and had a private conversation. Her name is Pauline. We find that out. And guess what her problem is? She can't speak in public. Well, that was pretty darn obvious. She couldn't even say her name, okay? She was so, like, psychologically like that. So I'm thinking, well, this guy, Rob Williams, is a pretty brave guy, or crazy. How do you know you're going to fix somebody? You know, you're going to fix somebody? You're going to tell us, and then you're going to fix somebody? I thought that's pretty confident. So they go up on the stage, and he shows her the process, which is called Psych-K, Psych-K. And it's 10 minutes. And at the end, she's sitting in a chair, and at the end of the process, she stands up, and he puts his arm on her shoulder and turns her to the audience and says, Pauline, would you like to explain to the audience how you feel about that balance we just arm off of her shoulder? And she's giving a lecture. She's walking up and down the stage, talking about her history, talking about her family, talking about everything. The joke, Rob said, Pauline, please sit down. You're using my lecture time. And that was the first time I saw energy psychology. And what happened? Less than 10 minutes, this whole fear of talking was changed so much that he had to ask her to stop talking after 10 minutes. So I was like, whoa. And that's my first introduction to called energy psychology. And it's a super learning technique, and it's an ability to rewrite programs. Now, the issue is this. The conscious mind is the one connected to your personal identity. And for those that are interested, it's spiritually connected to you as a unique entity, different from everybody else. But the subconscious mind is just a record playback. It records a behavior by observing it and plays it back. It's just so it's habit. Conscious mind, creative. Subconscious mind, habit. I go, well, here's the problem. They have different functions, creativity versus habit, but they learn in different ways. And that's where the problem has always come from, because we thought, well, if the conscious mind learns, then by sure the subconscious mind should also know the same thing. I go, that's where the problem comes from. They learn in different ways. The conscious mind is creative. It can learn by listening to this program you and I are having right now, Sebastian. Somebody could watch it, and the conscious mind goes, oh, wow, I got it. I understand what Bruce is talking about. Great. And I go, the subconscious mind can just go, aha, and change its belief. It could watch, it could read a self-help book. And I go, so you read the self-help book? I know you know it. Why? If I can give you a test, you could get 100 and say, this is what the book was all about. And then I say, now that you've read the self-help book, did your life change? And most people go, nope. I've got the smarts, but my life is still the same.
Right.
I go, now that's where the problem comes from. The conscious mind, being creative, can learn in any number of ways. Go to the lecture, watch a video, read a book, just even go, aha, and it can learn. But the subconscious mind is the habit mind. It doesn't learn that way. A habit is based on either of two ways. The first 7 years, you get a habit because your mind is working below consciousness in theta. And a habit, theta, is a direct download into subconscious. If you're in theta, you can make a new program go straight in, because that's below consciousness, but your brain is operating in theta, and information is just being directly downloaded into subconscious. After age 7, your brain is not operating in theta anymore, but you can put new programs in. I say, well, how do you put programs in after age 7? Oh, repetition. In other words, habit. Repeat it. Repeat it. Repeat it. How did you learn how to drive the car? You had to practice. You had to repeat it. How did you learn how to ride the bicycle? You had to practice. You had to repeat it. If you go back to an infant, how did you learn how to walk? Well, every day you tried to stand up, and every day you practiced until you got it. So I say, oh, conscious mind can learn in any number of ways. But subconscious mind learns through either hypnosis or repetition, habituation. We now know there's a third process called energy psychology. That's another way of putting programs in. That's the modern miracle, in fact. Okay? So I say, oh, so therefore, if I want to change the subconscious mind, say, reading the self-help book didn't change it. It changed my conscious mind, which learned everything I just read. But it doesn't translate into subconscious program. So I say, if I want to change the subconscious program, I have to do one of three things. A, be in hypnosis, theta. I go, well, do I have to see a hypnotherapist? I go, no, that's the cool part. Every night when you're going to bed, just when the conscious mind disconnects and you just drop into sleep, the moment the conscious mind goes, gone, you're in theta. So every night, just after the conscious mind lets go, the next period of brain activity is theta. So if you put a pair of earphones on as you go to bed, and you have a program playing on the player that has the behavior you want, and you can buy these programs, self-help programs, you can put this on every night as you go to bed, put the earphones on, and the moment the conscious mind falls asleep, the doorway to the subconscious is open, theta, and whatever's playing on that recorded message is going straight into the subconscious, because that's a state of hypnosis. So, A, you want to change the program? Then at night, put earphones on with a program of what you want. And that program will go straight into the subconscious and without even being involved with conscious, because that's already fallen asleep, okay? So, number one, it's called self-hypnosis. Just at night, put the earphones on, play the program that you want. Another way, as I said, the second way is repetition. And that means, and you repeat what you want, and you repeat it to yourself, and you repeat it to yourself. I say, what happens? If you keep repeating it, it is repetition that will cause a new habit to form. How you rode the bicycle, as I said, the first time you got on the bike, you didn't know how to ride a bike. But the more you practice, the better you became. And once you learned how to ride a bike, you never had to learn it again. So if I put a new program in by repetition, in that process of repeating, making a habit, there'll be a point where my subconscious will have the new program. And I go, then what? And I said, well, then you don't have to worry about anything. Why? Because 95% of the day, the new program will be playing instead of the old ones, which were causing a problem. So the second way of changing a belief is repetition. I like there's a phrase that people use sometimes. They say, fake it till you make it. Meaning, if you want to be happy and you're not happy, then guess what? Every day just say, I am happy. I am happy. I am happy. And I say, what's going on when you repeat this? I say, repeating it makes a habit. And after a number of days of repeating, I am happy, guess what? The subconscious has already got that program. And guess what? Now, 95% of the day, that program is playing. And you don't even have to say anything anymore. But now it's automatic. So once the program is in the subconscious, it's automatic. No more work for you. Okay? So that's through repetition. Some people put sticky notes on like the refrigerator, like, be happy or do this or do that. And I say, that is not repetition. That is not making a habit. That's more like a suggestion. When I pass the refrigerator, I go, oh yeah, that's a suggestion. I say, a habit is an actual practice of repetition, putting in what you want as the program and repeating it and repeating it. Okay? And then lastly, as I mentioned, there's, thank God, it's called energy psychology. These are mechanisms of behavior or modalities that engage what is called super learning. I go, what's super learning? I said, well, maybe you've seen somebody in a bookstore where they can open up a book and they move their finger down the page. As fast as they move the finger down the page, that's how fast they read it. So they can stand in a bookstore and move the page like that and read a book in 5 to 10 minutes, okay? And I said, well, if you can engage that super learning and use it to learn program, then you can do it in minutes. And I go, this is what energy psychology is all about. By engaging that super learning, you can walk away, like with Pauline, less than 10 minutes, radically change her entire life. I mean, she couldn't even say her name. And okay, that was pretty fast. And just so I give people an insight, my website is very simple. It's brucelipton.com. Under resources, I have about 25 or so energy psychology modalities in their website. So you can look up any one of these different modalities and read and find the one that is interesting to you and try it out, because you can rewrite these social issues in minutes with energy psychology. And, you don't have to, this is not a burden for the rest of your life unless you don't do something. If you don't do anything, you'll have social problems the rest of your life. That's a fact. You have to engage. I say, well, the only way to do that is change the program, hypnosis, repetition, energy psychology. And all three of those processes are ways of rewriting subconscious beliefs. So I need people to understand social anxiety is not genetic. It has nothing to do with genetics. It has to do with family and what's being passed down. As much as good traits, such as music from a father to a child, the musician, is passed down, bad traits are passed down just the same way. And therefore, we have to let go of the victim, because the moment you think you're a victim, oh, genes did this, then that means you have no power. And if you think you have no power, then you have no power. So you really have to have this knowledge. There's an old phrase, very important. It's called knowledge is power. And people say, yeah, I heard that. And I go, let me give it to you the same thing, but in a different way a little bit. It's called, a lack of knowledge is a lack of power. And what's the point? The point is this. The knowledge we've been given, oh, genes control this. And it's like, that's not true. But if you believe that, then guess what? You have no power. What's the point? That's misinformation. That's not knowledge. That's the opposite of knowledge. So I need people to understand out there is no gene connected with this social anxiety problem. There's not one gene been found, okay? And as I said, genes cause less than 1% of pathologies in the first place. So stop looking at the genes. And why is this relevant? Because when you know who you are, when you know how the conscious and subconscious work, you become empowered to create the life you want. And it's interesting. For many people, there's a period in your life where you stop playing the program and your life radically changed when you were not playing that program. I say, when was that? And it's like, when people fall in love, let's say their life every day, blah, 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 blah. And then they meet somebody, and the next day it's like, I'm in love. I go, and what happens when you're in love? I say, life is great. You're happy, you're healthy, the food is better, the music's better, everything's better. And we call that the honeymoon. I say, but how come your life yesterday, before you met this person, was, blah, and then 24 hours after you meet this person, life is, great. I said, what happened in 24 hours? And here's the answer. Science has recognized that period called the honeymoon, that happens right after you fall in love, results from the fact that when people fall in love, they stay conscious in their conscious mind. They stay what is called mindful. In other words, if you've been looking for a partner your whole life and a partner shows up, this is not the time to think. This is the time to be there. So people, when they first fall in love, stop playing programs. And when they stop playing the programs, all the negative programs that were in there don't work anymore. And now they're creating conscious mind, because they're keeping the conscious mind holding the wheel, driving the car. Conscious mind has wishes and desires. What they create? Heaven on earth. I go, but then the problem is if they start thinking, the old programs come back and the honeymoon is over with. Then you're back to the old negative things again. And that's why people have problems. They first fall in love, life is heaven on earth, and then all of a sudden it doesn't seem to be that much heaven anymore at some point. Then it's just normal life at some point. You lost it. I go, recognize the simple fact. The honeymoon was the expression of what is life like without playing a program. When you can create it, of course you're going to create heaven. But when you go back to the program because the conscious mind's thinking, then all the old bad behaviors will show up again and your life will return to exactly the way it was before. So people need to know, if they've ever even just fallen in love for a short period of time, wasn't it quite different the first few days after falling in love? It was like, oh, I'm so excited about life. I go, yeah. And the reason is you just stop playing the program when you're in love like that. And all of a sudden, heaven on earth is real. And that's what we want to be. And that we can get to.
Nice. I really like your sharing of the story with Pauline.
Yes.
It
shocked me.
Yeah. What a fantastic.
I never saw anything like that. It was like.
Yeah. What a fantastic introduction to energy psychology you had.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful. For me, it's definitely not been as shocking as that, and it has taken me quite a long time with using a wide variety of techniques to overcome my social anxiety. So I don't think it's always as awesome as it is with Pauline. However, However, the difference that you can make with techniques like this is that you can actually go in there and start changing these programs. And Pauline might have had only this one particular program, and in 10 minutes it was fixed. And you might have 20 programs or 200 programs. Who knows?
Let me give you an analogy because it'll make sense of what you're talking about.
Okay.
When you see a spider web, you see all those links that go around in a circle, and they're all link. Consider each link in a spider web as they go around as one belief. And I go, okay, I could start to work on this one belief, or I can work on this one belief and knock out one of the strands and knock out a strand and do it slowly. But sometimes if you get the core belief, you not knock out the link, you knock the anchor that holds the spider web.
Right.
And if you just hit the anchor, the whole damn web collapses. So I'm going to say what you had to experience there is sometimes it doesn't collapse the whole thing because you haven't hit the whole issue. You know, when her issue about the speaking issue, you think, well, what was that related to? When the story came out, it had to do that her parents tried to, prove a point to her. She was being fussy or something, and the parents in the car said, we're going to let you out. And they stopped the car, and they let her out. And they drove off to teach her this thing. She was in panic and shock. And the issue was the communication thing was indirect because it was really her talking that led to the problem, but the problem was abandonment. So, let's say it's a weight problem. Let's say you want to lose weight. And you say, okay, I'm way too heavy. I want this weight. This is what I want. And I put that number into my head. And I say, but sometimes I can't get there. I said, but I cleared the weight problem. I put a better weight in my mind. Problems are not always just because of weight and food. Weight problems are because people feel they're being abused, and that if they get heavy, people won't bother with them, especially women. If they're really pretty and slim and everything like that, they're going to get hit on. But what if they're heavy? They're not going to get hit on. Okay? So many women start to eat and put on weight as a means of self-protection. So you say, yeah, but I want to cure weight. I want this weight, and this is what I want to work on. I go, that's not your problem. Your problem is your protection. If you get rid of the need for the protection, the weight will disappear. So there's the issue of like, well, what belief do I need to hit to get rid of the problem? I go, sometimes you hit the right one, boom, 10 minutes later, your whole life has changed. Other times, as you just said, you might lose, okay, I rewrote this piece, and now I'm going to rewrite this piece, and it's going to take more pieces to go around versus hitting the anchor, boom, the whole thing collapsed. So energy psychology can happen really fast if you get to exactly where the problem came from, or you can beat around the bush and keep trying to clear up all the little ones step by step. It can do it, but it takes a lot longer to do it.
Amen. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And it's such a difference though. What you said about affirmations, that was the first thing that I found. I was like 17 or 18. I started doing affirmations like, I'm strong, confident, and in control. I'm strong, confident, and in control. But it took so much time before I started to believe it a little bit. So much repetition over and over and over and over and over.
That's why energy psychology for me was like, wow, now that's magic.
Right.
To me, it's magic, okay? Because I've seen it now, because that was when I met Rob. That was 20 so years ago or more. And the number of people that I've met in 20 years lecturing around the world, how many of them had changed their life radically using these energy psychology modalities. Like, oh, wow. Yeah, repetition works, but as you said, it may take a long time. Even the earphones on at night, you might have to repeat this a long time. But energy psychology is really interesting because if you get to the right belief, in minutes, the whole thing could be gone. Wow, that's a miracle the way I see it. And having changed my life, matter of fact, I could not have written my book unless I had changed in my programming in psychology. And the reason was simply this. I was trained as a conventional research scientist, genes, molecules, everything everybody knows, the biology, the science. And when I was going to write the book, I realized I was going to write about my new ideas, which brought in things like spirituality. It's like, oh my God. I say, what was my subconscious mind? When I started to write the book, I get about halfway finished and I couldn't write the book. I start again, get about halfway finished, couldn't write the book. I started it 3 times. And then I realized why, because then I did the energy psychology test. And guess what? my subconscious was protecting me. It said, Bruce, if you write this book, all your colleagues are going to run away from you because that's weird stuff that you're going to write about. And you have a career. You're at a big university. You're doing all kinds of research. If you write this book, you're going to lose everything. So my subconscious kept sabotaging my writing to protect me. But when I caught on that that was the belief and then rewrote the belief, the book came out almost instantaneously. So my struggle wasn't to be able to write the book. My struggle was because my subconscious said, if you do write this book, you're going to have a lot of problems. And changing that belief, all of a sudden the book was written virtually instantly.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful example. Consciously, you were a yes to writing that book, but subconsciously, it was a no. So 5% of you was yes, and 95% was no. Guess what was going to win in the end? Yeah,
exactly. Well, that was it. Simple numbers in that case.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, nice.
So to me, it's really important because when people in the community start to understand, I am not a victim of genes. Because if you say you're a victim of genes, the first thing you're saying is I have no power. And then all of a sudden, well, then fine, the rest of your life, if you think you have no power, then you're going to be exactly that program. It's only when you get out of victim do you have any ability to do something. By definition, victim means I'm powerless. And the belief in genes is that was the whole problem with the old science of genetics. Because it told people your life is not under your control, your life is under the control of genes. And then all of a sudden, anything that didn't work right was like, oh, the genes aren't right. It's not me, it's the genes. And I go, no, we control the genes. But we've been programmed. And everyone has. There's nobody that got onto this planet without being programmed. It's nature's way of kickstarting the machine. Go.
It was a little interruption. I was thinking, is there something going to come or not? Yeah, good. And yeah, the good thing is that we can now reprogram that. And yeah, thanks, Bruce. I think the story that you shared and clarifying how it works with the subconscious and the conscious mind will be very empowering for people to hear. And yeah, if you're listening to this and this is the first time you hear about this, highly recommend you go read The Biology of Belief. I read the book like 6 or 7 years ago, and I was in Thailand, Chiang Mai, living there with my best buddy at the time. I had just read Greg Braden's book, The Divine Matrix, another one that's gonna rock your world if you read that. And together we were reading The Biology of Belief, and we're going through it, and we're discussing, and we're like, oh my God, how is it that not everyone has this information? And it's such incredibly empowering information, and it's not just fluff or things. It's based on hard science. That's the amazing thing. So do yourself a favor and go check it out. It's unbelievable.
It's wonderful because I saw this new epigenetics stuff 50 years ago now. That's when I first did the experiments that revealed genetically identical cells in different environments express different fate. So I had like 3 petri dishes with all the cells in all 3 dishes are genetically the same, but I changed the environment, the culture medium, which is the equivalent of blood. Changed the chemistry a little bit. So genetically identical cells in 3 environments, 3 slightly different environments. In one dish, the cells form muscle. In another dish, the cells form bone. In a third dish, the cells form fat cells. And they were all genetically identical. I said, well, what caused them to become one thing or the other? And I go, not the genes. They all had the same genes. It was the environment. And that was my first insight back around 1970, 1968, 70. And the new science, epigenetics, which describes everything I saw, only came about in 1990. Wow. So I was like 20 some plus years ahead. And at first I was kind of weird, but now I sit back and go, guess what? Conventional science says everything that I'm saying. 30 more years than they have of the same understanding, but it also makes a bigger picture than what they're just getting into. So science is really moving along this pathway. And I really want to thank you for letting me speak to your community, because there's no reason for people to find themselves as victims in a universe where they are creators. We are creating, and we're creating with our consciousness, which changes the blood, which then changes our genetics. It's the same thing as in the petri dish. The cells in our body respond to the blood. That's the original culture medium. And the chemistry of the culture medium is based on our thoughts. Change your thoughts, change the chemistry. Change the chemistry, change the fate of the cells. And all of a sudden you find out less than 10% of cancer is even connected to genetics. It's connected to lifestyle. All of diabetes type 2 is lifestyle. Cardiovascular disease, 90% lifestyle. And all of a sudden we're beginning to realize, after telling everybody for years everything was under genetic control, it's like, okay, back off. That's not true. Completely false. It's lifestyle. You want to change your life? Then change your lifestyle. And this is what you've been helping people with, Sebastian, and this is really critical, because we can get them out of the victim category and put them into the master category, and the whole damn thing will disappear. And that's why your work is so very critical, and that community that you're with really needs to get a foothold on solid ground to say, I am not a victim other than through the program. And once I change the program, I am the master. And that's the future that they have when they're ready to change consciousness.
Awesome. I think we should end it there. Excellent. Bruce, thank you very much for taking the time and sharing this with us, and really appreciate that.
Sebastian, I appreciate being asked, because it's a lot easier to talk to a group of people at once than to go talk to each one individually. But each one of us on this planet has to recognize we are creators. We've just been programmed by other people not to create what we want. We're creating what they had. And just a very quick last thing.
Sure.
The idea that this programming controls our life, well, biologically, this is relatively new with epigenetics. But guess what? The Jesuits, for 400 years, have told their community, give me a child until it is 7, and I will show you the man. What they were saying, and people didn't even understand it, was, give me the child for 7 years, and the rest of its life will be whatever the program was. You give me the child till 7, I will show you the man, meaning I'll show you the adult. The adult came from the program in the first 7 years. They knew that for 400 years. And the public is now like, let's wake up, folks. You have been programmed. And this is an opportunity to get out of the program. Take that red pill from the Matrix. And the red pill gets you out of the program. Falling in love happens to be the equivalent of a red pill, because it actually stops the program. Okay, I talked more.
Bruce, thanks a lot. If you're listening to this, go to brucelipton.com, check out the book, and thank you very much. Thanks again, Bruce.
Thank you. I so appreciate the opportunity to be with you, and thank you, Sebastian, very much.